In a moment of unfiltered candor, a panel of seasoned analysts unleashed a whirlwind of takes that could only be born from the raw electricity of NFL debate. One of the panelists, embodying the humorous bravado that fuels these passionate conversations, kicked things off with bold declaration. I'm taking everybody else outside of Philadelphia, Washington, Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, Tampa Bay. The message? The Dallas Cowboys, despite the noise, aren't among the conference elite. At least not yet. As the conversation unfolded, the room ignited with a cocktail of laughter, disbelief, and sharp analysis, forming a round-table showdown that felt more like an overtime thriller than a studio segment. The debate wasn't just about numbers. It was about faith. Faith in Dak Prescott's ability to stay healthy. Faith in a defense led by Matt Eberflus, whose pedigree as a defensive coordinator is well regarded, yet whose recent stint as a head coach has left questions in his wake. Faith in a new offensive identity under Brian Schottenheimer, whose potential remains a mystery cloaked in uncertainty. And, ultimately, faith in a franchise that hasn't reached the NFC Championship game since the Clinton administration. This wasn't just analysis. This was gridiron soul-searching. Shannon Sharp didn't mince words. He challenged the optimism flooding the set, calling out the barrage of ifs from fellow analyst Dan Orlovsky. If Dak stays healthy, if they get a second receiver, if the offensive line matures, Shannon, the Hall of Fame tight end with a bite to match his resume, wasn't having it. If I had Elon Musk money, I'd be the world's richest man, he quipped, punctuating the segment with a reality check. Give me something I can stand on. It was a kind of mic drop moment that makes sports talk must-watch television. Dan, never one to back down, defended his take with surgical precision. He highlighted that when Prescott has been healthy, only twice in the past 5 seasons, the Cowboys delivered 12 and 11-win campaigns. That's not speculation, he argued. That's history. But questions loomed over Schottenheimer, a coach whose lineage includes football royalty, but whose resume lacks definitive proof of offensive genius. Even so, Dan maintained that the team is poised for growth. Young offensive linemen gaining experience, a tight end in Ferguson with the tools to elevate, and a defensive unit shifting schemes that could unlock its true potential under Eberflus. All pieces in a complex puzzle the Cowboys hope will finally click. Stephen A. Smith, the undisputed maestro controlled chaos, brought the hammer down with one critical point. Dallas might not even be the third best team in their own division. The NFC East has evolved. Philadelphia has become a juggernaut. Washington retooled and energized. Even the Commanders are no longer a laughingstock. And with teams like Detroit and Green Bay making serious moves in the NFC North, Dallas finds itself stuck in a tightening vice. Unless you're telling me 3 teams are coming out of the NFC East, Stephen A. warned, Dallas isn't dancing come playoff time. Meanwhile, the conversation veered into a passionate defense of quarterback Shedeur Sanders, whose pro-day mechanics, specifically his habit of patting the football before throwing, became the latest obsession among critics. Orlovsky and Sharp quickly stepped in, name-dropping legends like Marino, Elway, Rodgers, and Brady, quarterbacks who also patted and still carve out Hall of Fame legacies. But this wasn't just about technique. It was about perception. Why, they asked, is there such eagerness to tear Shedeur down? Here's a quarterback who put up eye-popping numbers, displayed poise and chaos, and carries the lineage of a football icon in Deion Sanders. Still, every motion, every pause is dissected as if he were under a microscope built to magnify flaws rather than strengths. The discourse cut deeper when Stephen A. added his trademark cultural lens. He questioned why Shedeur's entire body of work, his dominance, his efficiency, his leadership, is so quickly overshadowed by isolated habits that never seem to matter when done by quarterbacks with different backgrounds. The room agreed. The critiques felt less like analysis and more like nitpicking, a search for reasons to doubt rather than to believe. Shedeur's own response, however, showed why he may be cut from the same cloth as his father. When asked why he chose to throw at his pro day, despite his already proven resume, he answered with selflessness and vision. Several of his teammates hadn't been invited to the combine. By throwing at the pro day, he ensured every NFL team would show up, and with them, an opportunity for his teammates to be seen. It wasn't just a workout. It was a mission. Back on the Cowboys front, The final takeaway was less about raw statistics and more about narrative. Dallas has long had the talent, the star power, and the infrastructure. What they haven't had is postseason grit. They impress in the regular season, only to fall apart when the lights are brightest. That's why, even if they flirt with 10 wins, the panel wasn't ready to swipe right on playoff success. You're either in or you're out. Sharp fired off. This ain't flirting season. In the end, it was classic first take. Booming voices pointed fingers, but also informed perspective rooted in love for the game. As the analysts debated legacy, execution, coaching, and the ever-elusive it factor, the larger message rang clear. Talent isn't enough. Consistency is king. And whether it's the Cowboys chasing redemption or Shedeur Sanders chasing a dream, the NFL demands more than potential. It demands proof.